Hi, and welcome back, everyone. This is Mark with English Story Time with Mark. I'm glad to see you again. The story that I have selected to read today is called An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. This was written by American short story writer Ambrose Bierce and first published in the San Francisco Examiner newspaper in 1890. That's when it was first published. It's a very interesting story, and it's set during the time of the American Civil War, which was in about 1865 to 1867, 68, something like that. I'm not American, so I'm not 100% certain of the dates, but it was in the 1860s. Ambrose Bierce himself was a Civil War veteran. I'm not sure. I think he fought on the Union side, but I'm not 100% certain about that. But it's a very interesting story. I hope you will enjoy it. Once again, I've rewritten it to make it a little more easier to understand and taken out some archaic language that might make it easier for my non-native English speaking audience to understand. So let's listen to the story. At a railroad bridge in the southern United States during the Civil War, a man stood on the edge of the wooden planks, his hands tied behind his back. Soldiers in gray uniforms guarded him, their rifles held steady. The man was about 35 years old, dressed like a wealthy farmer. His face showed both fear and determination. Beneath him, the river flowed lazily, glinting in the sunlight. The soldiers were serious and silent as they prepared for the execution. The officer in charge gave brief, sharp commands. The plan was simple. When the signal was given, the man would fall from the bridge, the rope around his neck snapping tight, ending his life. Everything was ready, and the soldiers waited for the order. As the man stood on the bridge, he focused on the water below. He could see the driftwood floating downstream and imagined himself swimming away to safety. If only he could free his hands, he might be able to escape. His heart pounded as he thought about his family, his wife and children waiting for him at home. The thought of them gave him a sudden, fierce desire to live. The officer raised his hand, ready to give the final signal. Time seemed to slow down for the condemned man. He closed his eyes and listened to the sounds around him. The creak of the bridge, the chirping of birds, and the distant sound of the river. He opened his eyes one last time and stared at the water, determined to survive. The signal came. The man fell, but the rope snapped, breaking under his weight. He plunged into the cold river below, water closing over his head. For a moment, everything was dark and silent. Then, instinct took over. He kicked his legs and surfaced, gasping for air. The current pulled him downstream, away from the soldiers. Shots rang out as the soldiers fired their rifles, aiming at the man in the water. He dove under, swimming as hard as he could. Bullets sliced through the water around him, but he kept going, driven by a powerful will to live. The river carried him farther and farther away from the bridge. Finally, the man reached a calm part of the river and climbed onto the bank. He lay on the grass, breathing hard, his body aching. The world around him seemed sharper, more vivid. He noticed every leaf on the trees, every sound in the forest. He felt alive in a way he never had before. He got to his feet and began walking, heading toward home. The sun was high in the sky and the air was warm. He thought of his wife waiting for him, her smile, her touch. The thought gave him strength. He walked for hours, his bare feet bleeding from the rough ground, but he didn't stop. He was going home. As night fell, he reached a familiar path lined with trees. He could see his house in the distance, the warm light of the windows glowing like a beacon. His heart swelled with joy and relief. He ran, his legs heavy but determined, until he reached the front gate. He opened the gate and stepped into the yard. His wife appeared at the door, her face filled with surprise and happiness. She ran toward him, arms outstretched. He reached for her, tears streaming down his face. But just as their hands were about to touch, there was a sharp pain in his neck. Everything went black. The man's body swung gently beneath the bridge, the rope tight around his neck. His escape, his journey, and his reunion with his wife had all been a dream, a final, fleeting fantasy in the moments before his death. The end. It's an interesting and scary story. I always wonder, was he a ghost? Did he have a premonition? Did he, in the moment before he actually died, have a vision of his entire life, as some people say happens? I don't know if you've ever heard any stories of people who claim that they have died and then come back to life, but they often talk about seeing bright lights, and it's quite interesting. But in the end of the story, it seems like he had died. I hope you enjoyed this story. I certainly enjoyed sharing it with you. Please like, subscribe, and share. And I hope to see you again next time. Bye for now.